We've heard about woke indoctrination of students, particularly in public schools, but also in elite private schools. But John Levine's article in the New York Post, very interesting because it focuses on woke indoctrination of private school parents. So it turns out that these schools are nervous because sometimes when the parents find out what the kids are being taught in terms of indoctrination, the parents go, wait a minute, why are you doing this? So the school is like, let's head that off at the pass by bringing the parents into the woke indoctrination system from the beginning. Wow. So this is the tentacles of the school reaching beyond the school itself and trying basically to cajole, perhaps persuade, but in some cases intimidate and club parents into submission to the so-called diversity agenda. John Levine's article focuses on 5 elite schools that are doing this. Now, at the Brearley School, which is an all-girls school on the Upper East Side of New York, parents have to sign a pledge, basically saying they're committed to diversity. So once the daughters are accepted to the school basically says, in order to sign up here, we need to have a buy-in to diversity and inclusion and so-called anti-racism, DEI. We need to have that from the student and the parents. We're going to be having workshops all year for the students and the parents. And everybody has to sign on to, quote, identifying and eliminating policies, practices, and beliefs that uphold racial inequality in our community. And they talk about, quote, your family's responsibility to uphold these values. By the way, Andrew Gutman, a former Brearley dad who pulled his daughter out of Brearley, said, listen, they are trying to completely stifle dissent, not just among the students, but also among their parents. Quote, they want the parents indoctrinated the same way that they want their kids indoctrinated. Now, at Grace Church High School, also in New York, I talked about this on the podcast some months ago. They're still pushing diversity, but it's not mandatory. At the Spence Upper East Side all-girls school, parents are, quote, invited to take part in these courageous conversation equity workshops. They're put on by a group called the Pacific Educational Group, which is based in San Francisco. You can only imagine the kind of garbage that is being promoted by this group. Parents are invited to participate, but not required. Similarly, at the Chapin School, also on the Upper East Side, Chapin School is very clear that says that they say that the process is optional for the parents. But according to one of the parents, quote, if you don't go, your child is not going to go very far in the admission process. So in other words, they're like, well, you're invited to come to this, but then they are making it sound to the parents like this is a necessary part of becoming part of our community. So if you don't show up, we're going to sort of take note of it. This is really a way of telling parents, using the leverage that these selective schools have. In many of these schools, it's difficult to get into. It's a very selective process. So they essentially are using their leverage with the parents to make them come to these kinds of programs. So, look, the purpose in lower schools do indoctrinate kids. Hopefully they're indoctrinating them in grammar and in basic math and basic principles of biology and science and so on. And not the kind of political indoctrination, but as you get to the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, this is where you begin to learn and should learn critical reasoning that's very important for college. So isn't it terrible here that these schools are doing their best, at least on these key issues, to stifle critical reasoning, to suppress dissent, and it's extending to the point where we're not just going to sort of put a collar around the necks of the students, who are, by the way, already dominated by the faculty and the administration, but if the students go and tell their parents what's going on, well, guess what? We've indoctrinated the parents as well.